hopefully, like, this is so bad, and this is meant to be laughed at. I hope that he doesn't develop the mental capacity to like want to leave home. Please, I would love to have one child that I get to baby and take care of forever, and I hope it's him. And the best part about having a disabled child is that now I am morally allowed to have a favorite. And if anybody argues in my family, oh, I have a favorite, and it's definitely not you. It's that kid, obviously, and he better be your favorite too. You know?
Amazing.
It's great. I recommend everybody have one if it was a choice. Yeah, it's awesome. I'm a big dad. I think I'm a dad before anything else. I'm a huge dad, family person.
Yes. Dadhood is everything. That's awesome also. Like, I don't know, one of the things, that I'm in, in dealing with in therapy is like identity, and like music has just had so many more reps than dadhood, even, that you almost like when things don't go well in your music that you take it so personally, but I'm so much more than the music that I'm working on, because I'm a dad now, I'm a spouse. Like the family is obviously more important than that, but sometimes your identity is anyway, you prioritize your identity as the music guy more than that when you clearly shouldn't. And yeah, but so it's a struggle for me at least, but
hey, it's always a struggle. It's an ongoing struggle. It's a yin and yang.
It's a yin and yang. Yeah, thanks for being open and honest about that. Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, not giving a shit. That is the real deal, and that's obviously what I've been working on. A lot of people are working on. I'm an oldest child. I'm sure that's part of it. But wanting to please people based on what their goals are for you versus might not be the goals that you have for yourself. And there's a place for ego, and there's also a place for being a good person, and the reciprocal thing. And it's important not to give a shit all the time, and it's important to let go.
Absolutely. And I would say that, like, kind of to cap this off and I'm sure there's a lot of mixers that are really prideful about their work in a good way, that would listen to someone young and stupid like me and would immediately like just blow me off, like in one ear out the other, which is fine. I'm not going to expect you to think that I'm some all-knowing person, but I do think that in general, if you do a mix, and if you watch someone mix, or if you listen to other mixes and critique them, and the only things you could ever come up with is criticism, I would say that that's only hurting you, right? Like, I have this innate ability, and this is the real secret of how to get clients. This is horrible for an A&R, but great for an engineer and producer, is I have this innate talent to truly, from the heart, believe in every artist I listen to or I like work with. I don't care how bad it is. The worse an artist is, the more I'm like, I'm going to blow your mind, and I get more excited about it. And I think that ability to, like, I do Mixed Feedback Friday on Twitch, like every week. And when I'm streaming this, I listen to a lot of feedback. I do feedback, and I tell people how to improve. But it's not weird for me to just be like, I like it, I'm done. And I would say it's difficult for most engineers to accept that another person's mix is good. And if you find yourself being only critical, I think that directly affects the mixing process. Before anything technical, we don't even need to get to the technical level of how to use a compressor and EQ if you can't understand what a good mix is. If you can't appreciate someone's effort and intentions off the rip. If all you do is listen to Serban and Tony and Jason and Leslie or your local, even more so, your next door neighbor's mixes, and you have nothing but criticism to say about them, that is more important, and you need to figure that shit out to make better mixes before you learn how a compressor works. Because here's the deal. We all grew up listening to music. And some of these artists and some of these producers that we work with listen to more music by hour more than us as engineers.
For sure.
Yeah. They just lose objectivity as they learn to kind of get analytical. So it's we don't even need to get technical yet because we haven't even gotten to the foundation. Most people have not figured out their foundation. Their foundations are fucking sandy, and they're worrying about how the ratio and attack and release, those are important. Those are super important because you need to know what tools work and how things work in order to get the sound that you hear in your head. Mm-hmm. But there's a foundation that you have to get before that. And I think one of that, a lot of younger engineers are prideful, and they're like claim all the time, like, oh, I can't listen to music for fun anymore. I can only like critique it and be critical about it, and I'm only analytical. I can only listen to music analytically. I think one of the most important steps as an engineer, especially as an analyst, a professional analyst that we are, is to be able to enjoy music again and to fucking feel. Then we could talk about compressors.
Yeah, totally. I truth is, I don't analyze music technically pretty much ever anymore.
Amazing.
When I listen, I just listen. And it's funny when when a friend will send me a mix to, ask me for like a mix feedback or something, I'll be like, oh, this sounds great. Like, you don't have any feedback? I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, maybe raise the vocal there. If I opened it in my DAW, then I'm sure I would find things I would want to fix, right? Like once you open the hood, you're like, okay, what's going on with the vocal here? Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of harshness there. Maybe I'll dip that out a bit. But when I just hear the gestalt of the mix, you know what I mean? I'm not really looking for problems. I'm just looking to see if it feels good, And I'm not like looking for problems unless someone tells me to look for problems. You know what I mean?
I mean, listen to like the newest Billie Eilish records or any of Billie Eilish's records. Like the new, what's her big one? It's Not Okay or whatever. I forgot what it is. But the big one where it's like super distorted at the end. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, that is so wrong in every level. But it's so like, is there a better way to translate that emotion? Did that like, for example, like punk music? I think we can agree that it is the least technical and the worst as far like the technicality, musicality, not good. But is there a better genre to help a listener feel angst or anger or aggression? There's no... teach me a better genre that does a better job than punk music to relate to that medium of emotion, to translate that emotion. There isn't.
Yeah.
Like, who gives a shit? It's just about what you feel. And that's kind of why I do like punk, is punk music. And there is a current resurgence of punk music is because people need to feel shit.
Yeah, I feel like the current events in the world have kind of caused us to not want everything to sound so perfect anymore. I was just talking with Anthony J. Resta, who he's been in the game for like 3 decades. Brilliant guy, and he was saying like people don't want to hear it so perfect anymore. Like I think we're moving past that kind of perfection zone, and I think the state of the world has kind of just taught us that we can't just live in La La Land. We gotta, people want to feel things, and real shit is happening, and real shit's getting fucked up. So I think we're hopefully moving past this picture perfect, totally auto-tuned, I don't know, like environment that we've been in,
And sometimes auto-tune is the emotion. I don't think it's fair to dictate. Granted, I'm sponsored by auto-tune, so like I am biased.
Fair enough. I got no issue. I got no beef with the tool. It's not the tool. It's like
a reliance for people rely on it and try to cover their insecurity with it sometimes.
Sometimes bad sound is good sound, like you kind of said earlier.
Yeah. I mean, the existence of analog gear nowadays is that.
Right.
Like analog gear is technically inferior, but it sounds great.
Yeah, and I was talking to a mixer named Josh Bowman out of Toronto, Canada, he's a great mixer, and he was telling me like print your crazy effect stuff before you send it to me, because if I have to recreate it, I'm going to make it too perfect. And what's special about it is that it's not perfect. And I was like, yeah, I totally relate to that. Like as a mixer, you're like way too in the weeds about stuff, but sometimes letting something be janky is a good thing,
Oh, absolutely. So then we go back to the point that I always want to bring it back to is like, what is the right mix? What is a good mix? What makes analog better than the digital? There's so many questions here that like we just keep saying it. Like I don't think it's possible to prove. There's no way to prove that one's better than the other.
We got nothing. We could just talk about our own experiences and what we like and what we do. That's it.
And here's the one problem with that sentiment is people give me flack for this, is that it makes me feel like I'm undervaluing the amount of experience and technical expertise to do what we do. Like if anybody can just do it, then anybody can just do it. And I don't want to undervalue engineers. But I do think getting to the point where you can feel music and getting to the point where you're able to appreciate bad things in a good light is a skill that most people will never achieve. And I do think I'm not trying to ever undervalue engineers. I think that engineers are so valuable, especially with the rise of AI technology. I mean, that technology is there. if there was enough of a marketplace, there's not, but if there was enough of a marketplace, there would be a capitalist that would invest AI technology into automatically mixing for all of us. But there's not enough of a marketplace or enough margins to make that worth it for any investor yet. Even with the rise of AI technology, like we humans, we feel, why would people hire you versus me? It's not because you have better tools or lesser tools or anything else than I. First off, it's probably because I always say this to my artists, like if there was an artist, right? And it was you and me. And let's say you're a better mixer, technically a better mixer. You have better credits. They like your sound a little bit more. And I'm a little bit cheaper and may not be as good in whatever sense, subjectively speaking. But if an artist came through and they had the two options, and the difference between you and I is that I love the artist. Like I'm just so in love and I'm like really behind, like I really want to do this for you. Like I love this song. Is an artist really going to pick you over me at that point?
Probably not.
So it's like, so it comes down to sound.
Unless they have like bad reasoning, right?
Yeah, like, and even if, especially
it's like, but he's got the Neve, like let's go with him.
Oh, that's a red flag. You don't want that client to begin with.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
So I think it comes down
that's
to
not
this.
What you want.
Like, it's they come to me and they come to you for how we emote. Because they themselves are, or like, and sometimes they just want the thumbs up. Like sometimes I don't have to do anything. Like the mix that I sent you to if we don't have to ever talk about it, but is I actually did the least amount of stuff on that in any other mix. Like I did very little, relatively speaking. And sometimes the artist just wants like a thumbs up, and they just want that assurance, and
right.
It's crazy.
The QA, it's been we're good to go. It's good. That assurance, like we were talking about, the confidence.
Yeah,
totally. Before we jump into the sauce segment, there was a couple other things I wanted to ask you about. You kind of hinted at it, but I am curious about your thoughts on Atmos. You seem to have like a good, well-rounded view on a lot of things. I'm wondering if you are falling more on the Jesse Ray Ernster camp or somewhere else. Yeah, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
So this is one of those times where I will have to step in and say I don't know enough about Atmos to have an opinion. That's
your opinion. You don't know enough.
You're
not worried about it. You're not thinking about it. You're not trying to do it.
So I can point out some facts and I can guess on how that would change because I'm also into like basic macroeconomics and for example, right now labels Apple is paying out more for streaming Atmos mixes than if you listen to a regular stereo mix, which will directly impact how a label will always will promote and push. I mean, it's free money at that point, right? How they'll push for their viewers to listen to their Atmos mixes, which in turn will push the labels to push out more Atmos mixes. The problem with this is that labels at the current moment, you'd think that labels are paying more for these Atmos mixes. No, they aren't. They're just pocketing that profit themselves. Hopefully that will change, but there's way too many people jumping on right now that do have the money and the investment to get on. Like I think Capitol Records is doing an Atmos mix for like something stupid cheap that's putting everybody out of business. Like $750 a mix for an Atmos mix because they have the money to do that. And it's not really worth it for independent engineers to really do that yet unless they have some heavy investment funding. Maybe as there's more pressure and the limitations and like as these Atmos studios get way too busy and the labels have to reach out to more Atmos studios and when there's a lack of them, maybe that'll translate into it's going to be a little bit more affordable, easier to get into. But I haven't even gotten into the consumer side of stuff right now. Like most people, it's almost impossible to have a consumer Atmos setup in your home. It's almost all folded into headphones. And if you so it's this weird thing where there's not really a consumer way to there's not a way to consume Atmos the way that it's intended. So
yep.
I'm holding off until
that's my big issue.
Yeah. So I don't really have an opinion rather than the economics behind it. As far as like technology, I don't like Atmos mixes, but that's because I'm way biased. And I love stereo mixes. Like I'm an engineer. What are you going to say?
There's like a phase coherency issue in Atmos when it folds down into binaural.
Yeah.
And someone was explaining, because phase coherency is what makes bass sound good, and what we like about stereo mixes is how the bass slaps. And with the Atmos binaural stuff that I've heard, it's just kind of it's no longer slapping. I don't know. It's like surrounds your head. It's not as enjoyable. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. I agree with that big time.
But we'll see what happens. You know, maybe the algorithms will get better. I don't know. I'm just skeptical. I just feel like,
Have you listened to an Atmos movie in theaters though?
In theaters, sure. Yeah. It's amazing.
That shit is amazing in